what do I need to watch out for when purchasing my first home? I mean, that's a pretty broad question, but for those of you that have never bought a home before, have never gotten a mortgage before, this is a question that people don't ask directly, but they seem to ask indirectly. And so to help you with your first time home buying experience, make sure it's a good one, here's some things we think that you need to watch out for. One of the big ones that most first-time homebuyers wouldn't be aware of is making sure that the property you are purchasing is worth what you're paying for it. And so what do we mean by that? Well, if you see a property that you really, really like, and maybe it's $350,000, and you work out all of your math and your down payment, and you're very excited, you want to go and make an offer, and then it turns out that you get an appraisal on the property, and it turns out the property's worth $300,000, not $350,000. Well, the reason that's a problem for you is because the bank is only going to lend to you based on the lower of either the purchase price or the appraised value. So if you work out, 10% of $350,000 versus 10% of $300,000, that number is different. But not only is it different, if you buy a house that you made an offer for at $350,000, the appraisal comes in at $300,000, you're going to actually have to come up with that other $50,000 difference plus your down payment on the actual appraised value of $300,000. So if you're working with a good real estate agent, this rarely ever happens because they have a very good sense of what property values are, and if they're not sure, they're going to make sure to include a clause in the purchase agreement that says, look, we're going to need an appraisal done on this property, so we want to make sure that we can get access to the property. But if you're going it yourself, if you're going on some of the self-serve websites, or maybe you're doing a private sale of some sort, or even if you are using a real estate agent, one of the things that you need to know about is that the property you are buying is actually worth what you're paying for it. Another big thing to know is that you should know your numbers before you go out with your real estate agent. And many people, it's springtime or it's summertime, or an event happens in their life and they think, you know what, we want to go out and buy a property, and they don't kind of figure out how much cash they have, or if they do, they just sort of do it on the back of a napkin and say, you know what, we've got $50,000 or $30,000, or we can get a gift from our parents to buy a home, but they don't really work out, do we have enough income for the mortgage? Do we have the credit score that we need in order to get the interest rate that we want? And so they end up going out with a real estate agent. Real estate agents don't have a really great way of asking you, hey, have you checked out your math? Do you know if this is something that you can afford? And so you might end up making an offer on a property, or spending an enormous amount of time looking at properties and making offers and spending a lot of time with your real estate agent, only to find out that you're not even close. That you didn't work out your numbers, and you make an offer and you go to get an approval using emilynow.ca or using a mortgage broker specialist or a bank, and it turns out you don't qualify. Well, it's kind of a problem. And so as a service to yourself, as a service to the people who have listed their home that you might be looking at making an offer on, make sure that you know your numbers before you go ahead and do that. Another thing to keep in mind is to make sure that all of your information is in order before applying for a mortgage. And if you don't have your job letter, if you don't have a pay stub, if you don't know where your bank statements are, if you don't have a copy of your credit report, you might find yourself in a situation where you find a really great property, a really great price, but you have to close quickly in order to get the good price. And so all of that seems to be okay, and then you can't find your tax return, or it turns out that your employer doesn't give you the job letter on time, and because you didn't have all of your stuff together, trying to close a deal quickly, it doesn't close on time, and so then you're going to be charged late interest. You're going to have a vendor who's very upset with you. Your real estate agents are going to be going bananas because you simply didn't have your stuff together. And so you can figure out what that stuff is at emilynow.ca, but the point is, some of the things you need to know about buying your first home is make sure you've got this information together before you go ahead and make an offer, so that you've left yourself enough time to deal with it. And then, kind of the last big one is make sure that you've sorted out your down payment before you make an offer. And why that's important is because some people think, oh, we've got $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 to put down, but it turns out we have to pay off our MasterCard before the bank will approve us. So now some of that money that we had as a down payment, turns out we're going to have to use it for the credit card, and now we're short on our down payment. So maybe you need a cosigner. Well, trying to find a cosigner after you've made an offer is can be pretty tricky. Maybe mom or dad don't want to sign for you, or maybe somebody in your family doesn't want to co-sign the mortgage, and now you just find yourself in a bit of a jam. So make sure you've worked out your down payment options, which sort of relates back to the other things that I've mentioned, which is being prepared, having your information together, and having your down payment rather sorted out. Is very important. And so if you're interested in getting prepared for your first mortgage, we'd encourage you to visit emilynow.ca and get an Emily score. You might be asking, well, what is an Emily score? Well, an Emily score tells you how prepared you are to be approved, and the Emily score can be used to determine the interest rates you're going to receive. It's used to help you understand which banks or lenders will approve you. In fact, you can see them all right there inside of your account. And we also have an amazing client services team that will take your Emily score, maybe it's a 5 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10, and we're going to try to help you get all the way to a 10 out of 10 so that you've got all of the options available in the marketplace. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, and if you're looking at buying your first home, we'd encourage you to get started today.